Alrighty, welcome back, guys. We are hitting the headlines. Here's what we're covering now. Of course, Libya's leader, Muammar Gaddafi, is desperately clinging to power after days of brutal attacks on protesters, but the country could be heading for a civil war. If, in fact, finally Gaddafi and son, they're out of there, that's the next major part of this puzzle, which is the transition. Who takes over then? And then should a team of advisory team from the U.S. go in and say, hey, listen, let me help you set up the business plan. This is how you get from point A to point B in order to stabilize your country and get it to this democratic way of governing.
Yeah, I think something along those lines. Again, it's not as clear-cut as Egypt, where the military had comported itself pretty well, and we knew that both the Egyptians and the free world would be comfortable with a military transition. I don't think that would be the case in Libya. Nonetheless, there are dissidents who I think will emerge as leaders of these protests. There are also Libyan Americans who've been working toward freedom in Libya. So that combination, it's not for the U.S. to choose, but I think some sort of transitional forces would emerge. It would probably be the leaders of this protest. We can help in two ways. We can help in communications, both during and after an uprising. Also, it's very important, not just in Libya, but also in Egypt and Tunisia, that if democratic governments emerge, that they deliver economically for their people in order to survive.
Okay, but that's great and a great point. How does that happen? How does that happen? And that's where people are going to be looking to the United States for financial aid.
Exactly. Exactly, but we shouldn't do traditional financial aid because that tends to just fuel corruption. We should do instead what we did in Central Europe after the Berlin Wall came down, and we recently just studied this through our Hamilton Foundation, a report. If you focus instead on building up small and medium-sized enterprises and building the privately employed private sector, if you will, rather than just pouring foreign aid through corrupt institutions, you get a middle class. You get the people who actually want reform. And
but let me jump in. Christian, hang on though, but do you think some of those larger and corrupt institutions that you're talking about, do you think they would put up a fight against trying to financially bolster these mid-size companies, the middle, the smaller companies?
I think, yeah, they would. Libya's economy is very, it doesn't really have much of an economy. It has an oil sector that has suffered from a lack of investment because they tend to scare off any capital that comes in. So providing growth capital for small and medium-sized businesses to grow, capital they can't access the way companies in the U.S. can by going and getting an SBA loan or other things like that. And yes, I think in any post-revolutionary environment, you have the old corrupt actors who partnered with the corrupt government being swept aside, so you'd probably have something like that happen in Libya.
Most of the protesters, they're young, so they are doing this through social media and in terms of communicating, so they are tech savvy, so that could be a way to get jobs to them right away.
Yeah, but just out of curiosity, where are those people now? Because to me, the Obama administration, I don't understand for the life of me, and I'm an Obama supporter, why we're not making a real clear statement about what we think. Forget about what we're going to end up doing. But communications, at the very least, is something that we can provide that's not so expensive, or at least we can teach. Aren't they there? The young people who have, all the uprisings that we keep seeing are fueled by communication. Where are they in Libya?
Right. Well, that's interesting. There's a military platform. It's called Commando Solo. It's a C-130 cargo plane that's just bristling with antennas that you could put off the Libyan coast in international airspace, and it could help. It's a little lower tech. I don't know if it does anything related to the internet, but certainly satellite radio broadcasting is something we can do, shortwave, medium wave, overcome the blockade Libya has tried to erect on communications between the dissidents and the people of Libya.
Christian, I know I have to let you go. If you were able to forecast this, do you think this is that Gaddafi and son will be leaving sooner than later?
It's looking pretty good, but I wouldn't underestimate his capacity for brutality. But yes, I think things are looking in a strong direction, and I've heard, these are unconfirmed rumors, that he's looking for a place in exile. So hopefully the days of Gaddafi are numbered.
Yeah, indeed. All right, Christian Whiton, thank you very much for your insight. It is 10:43 here on the East Coast. We're going to take a break. We're hitting the headlines. We're back after this. It is 10:48. We still have a little more time here. I'm still joined by Eric Yaverbaum. We've talked about the unions in the fight now going to Ohio. The president is going to be there today. We've spoken about what's happening in Wisconsin. We, of course, covered Muammar Gaddafi and whether or not his son, he and his son, or specifically he, will continue grandstanding and how long before he ultimately leaves. And then we just had this unfortunate report. So before we leave, Eric, I just, whatever it may be, I'm interested in what your final thoughts are in terms of whatever topics we discussed today, or maybe you have a completely different thought.
I'm just very, very hopeful. I'm very disappointed that the White House has not made clear statements about what our position is in Libya. I understand all the risks of doing it, but that's democracy in action. It's going to be a lot harder for us to be involved in the way we were in Egypt. We were much more connected in Egypt. We had many more
military.
Much more so than we are in Libya. It doesn't cost us anything to say what we believe in, and I would be very disappointed if the White House doesn't say what we feel very strongly about, and that's in what the people think.
And I have no intel on what the White House thinks, or I'm certainly not here to defend the White House. Just food for thought, though, a question even. I wonder if it has if it seems to be a laid-back position, if it has anything to do where they're trying not to incite this guy even more, because he's already said, I will litter the streets with blood. I will not go until the last bullet has been fired. And perhaps, who knows? Again, I don't know.
Well, that's all any of us can do is speculate and rely on stories that we all see in the news, but there he is under an umbrella. He's still there, and then another report is that he's on his way out. And who knows? I just know what the United States, what Republicans and Democrats, what we all believe in, and we all believe in democracy, and we all believe in freedom of speech. And at the very least, I don't understand why we can't say that.
All right. Well, maybe we'll hear something strong sometime soon, because if we're talking about it here on FoxNews.com Live, then I'm sure many other people are talking about it as well. Eric Yaverbaum, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.